everybody, my name's Helen, and today I'm bringing you a book talk on the book We Were Liars by Lockhart. Unfortunately, I do not have a hard copy of this book with me because I rented it from the library and it was due back a few days ago, and I didn't have time to do my book talk until now. So yeah, but I'll put a pretty picture right here. Isn't it pretty? So again, I'm going to try doing this first section with a non-spoiler kind of thing, and then the second section will be spoilers, and I'll make sure to let you know when the spoilers are going to come so that those of you who haven't read the book can leave. So first of all, I do believe that the best way to go into this book is with zero knowledge of it. To enjoy this book to its fullest, you need to not know anything about the plot. So I do recommend that if you haven't read it that you leave now, because I'm going to go into a vague synopsis, and it will not be spoilery at all. It's just so much better to go into this book without knowing anything. This book is basically about this family, and they're called the Sinclairs, and they're a very rich, very powerful family. And every summer, all of the Sinclairs go to this private island that they own, and they spend the summer there. And this book follows 4 teenagers who are on the island for the summer, a very specific summer. And this group is called the Liars by the rest of their family. And it's just following them for the summer, and some crazy stuff happens. This was my very first Lockhart book. I know that she's a fairly well-known author, but I just have never gotten to read anything by her. And this was a fantastic book to read as her first novel for me. I absolutely loved it. I loved her writing style in this. It was very beautiful and poetic and very cryptic, and also really, really shocking with some of the choices that she would make with her diction. But that writing style is definitely what made this book for me. It made it just so good. So good. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend it, and just try not to get yourself spoiled. So that is it for the non-spoiler section of this book talk. I'm now going to start diving into some of the, very, very, very spoilery stuff. So if you have not read the book, I suggest you leave. Goodbye! Goodbye! Are you gone? Good. First thing I want to talk about is the fact that there are so many frickin' Sinclairs. The first, probably quarter of this book, I was so confused with character names. I could not keep them all straight in my head. I kept getting very confused, aside from the main 4. I could figure out Cadence, Scat, Mirren, and Johnny. Those 4 were good. But as soon as they started mentioning other names, it was like, hang on, I have to remember who this is now. So I don't know if any of you had that same kind of problem, but I definitely did. It didn't take away from my enjoyment of the book once I kind of got it all straightened out, because it didn't take too long to figure it all out. As I kind of mentioned here, our main 4 are Cadence, Scat, Johnny, and Mirren. And I have to say that for the majority of this book, I did not like any of them. They're all they represent the kind of people who I do not typically get along with. However, by the end of the book, not necessarily that they had grown on me, but I did feel something with the end of this book. Although not necessarily for the characters, but for what they kind of represented at the end, if that makes sense. I'll get more into that later once I get into the whole portion of this that will be about the ending of the book. So we learn very, very early on that Cadence, who is our narrator, is a very unreliable narrator. She seems to think in these very bizarre kind of metaphorical ways, and until you kind of get the hang of reading from her perspective, these things are so ridiculously shocking when you read them. Hold up for a minute. Did her dad really just shoot her? Or is she just using a really, really intense metaphor? And every single time she's using a metaphor, but she speaks it in such a realistic way that you have to stop for a minute and honestly believe that this just happened. So 2 things to do with Gat that I kind of want to talk about here. He's the only person who goes on the island who's not a Sinclair. He is just kind of related to them through marriage. And he and Cadence become a couple very early on in this book. I was not too keen on their relationship, to be honest. I didn't really like Gat at all. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of Cadence either, I felt protective of her as the reader, knowing that she had to have some sort of psychological thing going on with her because of the way she thinks. And for some reason, Gat just rubbed me the wrong way. And the other thing that kind of came up really early on, and is mentioned a couple of times from Cadence, is that Gat has a scar on his face, and I believe she says it goes through his eyebrow. Every time she would bring it up, I kind of wanted to know where it came from. I wanted to know why he had this scar. But we never found out, and it really bothered me. I really wanted to know where this scar came from. I don't know why. I don't know why it intrigued me the way it did, but I guess just the way that Cadence kept me mentioning it, I thought it was going to have some sort of key thing to do with what happened to her in summer 15, and it just didn't. But my cat scared the shit out of me. One of the things that I've noticed a lot of people doing while they're doing their book talks is they talk about the theories that they had about what the twist was going to be at the end of this book. And I did have 2 theories that kind of developed as the story went on. And the first one, which I think everybody had, was that Gat somehow hurt Cadence. And whether it was on accident or intentionally, he somehow hurt her, and that was why she ended up in the lake with her head injury. But considering the way he was acting around her in the 17th summer, I assumed it would have been an accident. But my second one didn't develop until, halfway or 3/4 of the way through the book. And it was when Johnny and Mirren and Cadence and Gat went on a boat kind of around the island. And they climbed up these rocks and then jumped into the water. And this is kind of around when Mirren is starting to feel really sick, and she says she's not going to do it because she's already done it. And as soon as Mirren said something about already having done it, my brain immediately jumped off of the rocks in their 15th summer, and Cadence had potentially hit her head and was now in a coma, and everything that was happening around her was like a dream while she was in a coma. And then there was also something mentioned about Johnny's mother holding his jacket and sobbing into it, so I thought that maybe Johnny had fallen and hit his back on a rock or something and snapped his neck, and now he was dead. But that didn't end up being it at all. Instead, no, Cadence came up with this really stupid plan, and they set the house on fire, and all of them except for her burned in it. Outfit change. The whole plan was just really, really stupid, because they had them all divide into floors, and just, it was so infuriating. As I was reading about their plan, it was like, how stupid can you possibly be for this to honestly be the way you're going to go about doing this. Some things I do have to say about the ending are, when they mentioned the dogs dying because they were in the room upstairs, I was heartbroken, and I kept just trying to hold back tears for those dogs because I'm a huge animal lover, and anything to do with that just breaks me inside. And also finding out that everyone else was dead was quite the shock for me. I was expecting one of them to be dead, maybe 2, but not all of them. And just the way that they died is so terrible, and how Cadence is now gonna have to deal with the guilt of that is insane. But what really got me about the end of this book was finding out that the friends she has been hanging out with all summer are just either ghosts or hallucinations, we don't really know, who were there to show her that they still loved her and didn't blame her for their deaths. And that made me cry. So that's it. That is my book talk for We Were Liars. What are some of your thoughts on this book? Leave your comments down below. I look forward to hearing from you, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!